Welcome to another slow descent into sleep. Tonight's story opens on a gloved hand, pressing cotton soaked in ash and rose oil against a face that will never breathe again. In the cold blue before dawn, high in the sacred highlands beneath Mount Damavand, the Nasā-Sālār begins his walk. Bont on his shoulder lies the still weight of a life complete, wrapped in linen, bound with prayers older than the mountain itself. The path winds upward through stone that remembers fire, past watchers who do not speak, toward the Dogma, where the sun, the wind, and the sacred birds will finish what he has begun. Every footstep is a covenant, every breath a bridge between purity and decay, every shadow a witness in the eternal court of the sky. Let the wind carry you, let the stone guard you, and if these quiet wanderings bring you comfort, you might consider subscribing or telling us where and when you're listening from. Now, close your eyes and walk with the Nasā-Sālār into the endless cycle of light and silence. The dawn has not yet broken over the sacred highlands near ancient Regi, and already the wind carries whispers of the work that must be done. In the pre-dawn darkness, before the first light touches the distant peaks of Mount Damavand, he rises from his mat of woven reeds, his movements slow and deliberate as the turning of seasons. The air around his dwelling is thin and dry, carrying the scent of sage and the faint metallic tang of stone that has known centuries of sun and rain. His hands, weathered like the limestone cliffs that guard the valley, reach for the sacred bundle that waits beside his sleeping place. Within the cloth lie the tools of his calling: cotton soaked in ash and rose oil, copper blades, blessed by the Morbad sacred thread spun from the wool of white sheep that have never known the touch of death. These implements are his companions in the work that separates him from other men, the work that makes him both necessary and untouchable in the eyes of the faithful. The dwelling where he rests is built into the hillside itself, carved from the living rock that remembers the prayers of those who came before. Its walls are smooth from the passage of countless hands, and small niches hold oil lamps that burn with the sacred flame, never extinguished, never allowed to touch the profane world beyond these stone chambers. The light flickers against surfaces that have absorbed decades of incense and whispered prayers, creating shadows that dance like the spirits of the departed. As he moves through the ritual of preparation, each gesture follows patterns laid down by generations of those who walked this path before him. His fingers trace the sacred symbols carved into the stone basin, where he cleanses himself with Gomez, the purifying liquid that cleanses without corruption. The ritual is ancient, older than memory, and in its repetition he finds the strength to face what awaits him in the world above. Outside, the wind continues its eternal conversation with the stone, a sound that has echoed through these highlands since the first fire was lit on the first altar. The wind speaks in languages older than Avestan, older than the written word, carrying messages from the realm of Ahura Mazda to those who know how to listen. It whispers of the balance that must be maintained, of the sacred duty that keeps the pure elements safe from contamination, of the necessary work that someone must perform so that others may remain clean. The cotton cloth, soaked in its mixture of ash and rose, covers his nose and mouth like a barrier between his breath and the world of Nasā that awaits him. Through this filter, the air becomes manageable, transformed from the dangerous medium that carries corruption into something that can sustain life without compromising the sacred order. The rose oil brings a sweetness that counters the bitter reality of his calling, while the ash reminds him of the purifying fire that cleanses all things in the end. His feet, bare and hardened by years of walking the stone paths, know every irregularity in the way that leads from his dwelling to the place where the dead await his ministrations. The path winds upward through formations of rock that thrust from the earth like the fingers of sleeping giants, each stone carved by wind and weather into shapes that suggest meanings beyond the reach of ordinary understanding. In the growing light, these formations cast shadows that shift and change, creating a landscape that seems to breathe with the rhythm of the eternal cycles. The linen-wrapped forms that wait for him in the preparation chamber are silent testimonies to the mortality that touches all living things. Each bundle represents a life that has reached its conclusion, a story that has found its final sentence, a flame that has returned to the great fire from which it came. They lie in perfect stillness, arranged according to the prescriptions of the Bedtime, positioned so that no sacred element will be defiled by their presence. The chamber itself is a marvel of Sasanian craftsmanship, its walls cut from the living rock and polished to a surface that reflects the lamplight like water. Channels carved into the floor direct any fluid away from the sacred areas, while vents in the ceiling allow the contaminated air to escape without touching the pure flames that burn in the adjacent chambers. Every detail has been considered, every possibility of contamination, anticipated and prevented through the wisdom of those who codified the sacred law. In this space between the world of the living and the realm of the dead, he performs the initial rituals that will prepare each body for its journey to the dogma. His hands, protected by layers of cloth that will be burned when the work is complete, move with practiced precision as he checks each binding, ensures each covering is secure, confirms that every requirement of the sacred law has been fulfilled. The work is methodical, meditative in its repetition, a prayer made manifest through careful action. The light that filters through the chamber's openings changes gradually from the deep blue of pre-dawn to the pale gold of early morning, marking the passage of time in a place where time seems to move differently than in the world below. Each moment stretches like the shadows cast by the oil lamps, extending into spaces that feel larger than the physical dimensions of the chamber would suggest. In this extended time, the work takes on a quality of ritual dance, each movement flowing into the next with a rhythm that matches the slow breathing filtered through ash and rose. As the preparation continues, the presence of the waiting dead becomes not a burden, but a kind of companionship. They have passed beyond the concerns that trouble the living, beyond the fears and desires that drive men to actions they later regret. In their silence, they offer a peace that the living rarely achieve, a stillness that speaks of completion rather than emptiness. Their presence fills the chamber with a quality of attention that makes every gesture significant, every breath a conscious choice. The sacred thread that binds each form is woven with prayers that were ancient when the first fire temple was built in these highlands. Each knot carries the weight of tradition. Each binding represents the careful attention that the faithful owe to those who have completed their earthly journey. The thread itself is consecrated through rituals that ensure its purity, prepared by hands that have touched nothing profane, spun from will that has been blessed by priests who maintain the sacred flames. Through the openings in the chamber walls, the sound of the wind grows stronger as the sun climbs higher, bringing with it the promise of the work that must be done in the full light of day. The wind carries on its currents the calls of the birds that wait on the heights above, the sacred scavengers, whose role in the great cycle is as important as his own. Their cries speak of hunger that serves a sacred purpose, of appetites that fulfill divine command rather than mere animal need. The copper blades that will be used to open the burial shrouds gleam in the lamplight like fragments of captured flame. Each blade has been blessed according to the ancient formula, consecrated through rituals that connect them to the sacred fire that burns in the heart of creation. When the time comes to use them, they will cut not just fabric, but the final ties that bind these souls to the world of the living, freeing them to complete their journey to the realm of light. In the growing warmth of the morning, the scents within the chamber begin to mingle and change. The rose oil releases its fragrance more freely, creating an atmosphere that speaks of gardens that might exist in the paradise promised to the faithful. The ash carries with it memories of purifying fires, of flames that consume the corruption of the world and leave behind only what is essential and clean. Together, these scents create an environment that exists between the sacred and the profane, a space where the necessary work can be performed without compromising the purity of either realm. The ritual movements become a form of meditation, each gesture repeated until it achieves the quality of prayer. The positioning of the bodies, the checking of the bindings, the preparation of the tools, all of these actions flow together into a continuous offering, a dedication of human effort to the maintenance of cosmic order. In this work, the distinction between the sacred and the mundane dissolves, leaving only the careful attention that transforms necessity into worship. As the chapter of preparation draws toward its close, the chamber fills with a quality of expectation that seems to emanate from the stones themselves. The waiting dead seem to breathe with a rhythm that matches his own filtered breathing, creating a harmony that speaks of completion rather than ending. The tools lie ready, blessed and consecrated for their sacred purpose. The path upward beckons, winding through stone formations that have witnessed this ritual countless times before. The wind outside grows stronger, carrying with it the promise of clouds that will provide shade for the work ahead. The birds call more frequently now, their voices joining in a chorus that speaks of readiness, put of appetites prepared to serve their part in the ancient cycle. The morning light strengthens, illuminating the path that leads from the chamber of preparation to the heights where the Dogma waits beneath the endless sky. The path that leads upward from the preparation chamber cuts through landscape that seems carved from the dreams of ancient gods, each step taking him further from the world of ordinary concerns, and deeper into the realm where sacred duty transforms necessity into worship. The stones beneath his feet have been worn smooth by the passage of countless Nasā-Sālārs who walked this way before him, each footfall adding its whisper to the accumulated prayers that seemed to rise from the very ground. Behind him, the linen-wrapped form moves with a gentle motion that comes from years of practice in carrying the sacred burden. The weight is distributed according to principles laid down in the Vedtime, balanced so that no strain falls upon muscles that might otherwise fail at the crucial moment. The body rests upon a bier constructed from wood that has never known fire, bound with rope that has been blessed by priests who maintain the sacred flames in the valley temples. The morning air grows thinner as the path climbs higher, carrying with it scents that speak of spaces where heaven and earth meet in daily conversation. Sage and wild thyme release their fragrances as his passage disturbs their leaves, creating an atmosphere of purification that prepares the senses for what lies ahead. The rose and ash that filter his breathing mingle with these natural perfumes, creating a harmony that speaks of human ritual working in concert with the offerings of the natural world. From the rocks above, the first watchers announce their presence with calls that echo off the stone walls of the valley. The vultures have begun their gathering, their voices carrying messages that only they fully understand, though the meaning is clear enough to those who know their part in the sacred cycle. These birds are not mere scavengers, but servants of divine will, their hunger transformed by sacred purpose into an instrument of purification that keeps the holy elements safe from contamination. The path turns upon itself as it climbs, each switchback revealing new perspectives on the valley that spreads below. From this height, the fire temples appear as points of light scattered across the landscape, like stars brought down to earth, their sacred flames creating a constellation that mirrors the arrangement of lights in the celestial realm. The sight brings comfort, a reminder that the work performed in this high place serves the same divine order that maintains those eternal fires. As the climb continues, other watchers reveal themselves through movements that catch the eye without declaring their presence overtly. The Mobad waits at the designated station, his robes stirring in the wind. That carries his prayers upward toward the realm of Ahura Mazda. His presence is both reassurance and responsibility, for his records will preserve the memory of this day's work long after those who participate in it have joined the ranks of the departed. The priest's face remains turned toward the sacred text that rests upon a reading stand carved from a single piece of blessed wood, his lips moving in prayers that have been spoken in this place since the first dogma was built in these highlands. His function is to bear witness, to record the name and the day so that the cosmic accounting remains complete. But his eyes never turn toward the burden that passes him on the path. Such looking would compromise the purity required for his own sacred function. Further up the slope, where the path disappears behind an outcropping of weather-carved stones, another figure maintains her vigil in the manner prescribed by ancient law. The bone washer has positioned herself at the proper distance, close enough to fulfill her role in the cycle, but far enough to avoid contamination that would prevent her from handling the ossuary. Jars that wait in their appointed places. Her movements, when glimpsed through breaks in the stone, have the quality of ritual dance, each gesture flowing into the next with practiced grace. The tools of her trade rest in careful arrangement on cloth that has been blessed for this purpose. Copper instruments that will eventually gather what remains when the birds have completed their sacred work. The jars themselves gleam in the morning light, their surfaces decorated with symbols that speak of the journey souls must make from the realm of flesh to the domain of pure spirit. Each vessel has been prepared according to specifications laid down by sages who understood the requirements of both the physical and spiritual realms. Behind the low wall that provides both concealment and protection, another watcher maintains her silent presence. The grieving daughter has come to offer her farewell to one who shared her blood. Though the requirements of sacred law prevent any direct contact between the living and the dead, her stillness speaks of grief held in check by understanding, of love that expresses itself through careful observance of the rules that maintain cosmic order. The distance between her position and the path of the dead measures more than physical space. It represents the gulf that has opened between the world of the living and the realm that her beloved has entered. Yet in maintaining this distance, she demonstrates the deeper connection that transcends physical presence, the bond that survives the transformation of death and continues to bind souls together across the boundaries that separate different modes of existence. The wall itself is built from stones that have been selected for their ability to stand firm against the winds that sweep these heights. Each block fitted to its neighbors with the precision that characterizes Nasā-Sālār craftsmanship. The mortar that binds them contains no lime that might attract corruption, but consists instead of clay mixed with sacred substances that reinforce the barrier between the pure and the impure along its length. Small niches hold offerings of flowers that will be removed before they can wilt and introduce decay into this consecrated space. As the path makes its final turn before reaching the Dharma platform, the figure of the young waterbringer comes into view, positioned at the precise spot where his function serves the requirements of both law and compassion. The vessel he carries contains water that has been blessed, but will not come into contact with the body, for such contact would defile the sacred element and compromise its purity for future ritual use. Instead, he places his burden on the appointed rock and withdraws to a safe distance, his part in the ceremony complete. The water itself reflects the morning sky like a fragment of heaven brought down to earth, its surface undisturbed by any wind that might carry contamination from the work that will soon commence. The vessel that contains it has been shaped by hands that understand the relationship between form and function. its curves designed to hold the sacred liquid without allowing any loss through evaporation or spillage. When the time comes for purification, this water will serve its purpose without ever being corrupted by contact with Nasā. The young man's withdrawal follows patterns established by countless repetitions of this ritual, his steps retracing a path that has been sanctified by the feet of those who served this function before him. His face remains turned away from the beer and its burden, for the requirements of his own purity prevent him from looking upon what he serves through his careful provision of the cleansing element. In his avoidance, he demonstrates the wisdom that preserves the sacred order through countless small acts of proper attention. The dogma platform itself begins to come into view as the final stretch of path unfolds before the climbing feet. The circular structure rises from the natural stone of the hilltop, like a crown placed upon the head of the earth itself. Its walls built with such precision that they seem to grow from the living rock, rather than being imposed upon it. The interior remains hidden from this angle, but the presence of what lies within makes itself felt through subtle changes in the quality of light and air, that speak of spaces designed for purposes that transcend ordinary understanding. But birds have begun to gather in greater numbers now, their forms circling at heights that speak of patience trained by countless repetitions of this ancient dance. Their calls create a chorus that rises and falls with the rhythm of their flight. Voices that speak in languages older than human. Speech but perfectly comprehensible to those who understand their role in the cosmic order. Each species maintains its appointed place in the aerial hierarchy. Vultures commanding the higher altitudes, while kites and smaller scavengers occupy the middle spaces of the sky. The platform's rim catches the strengthening sunlight and throws it back toward the heavens like an offering of captured radiance. The stone surfaces polished by weather and time until they achieve an almost mirror-like quality. This reflection serves multiple purposes. It honors the light that illuminates all things. It provides a signal visible from great distances that the work proceeds according to divine plan. And it creates an environment where the boundary between earth and sky becomes fluid, allowing the souls of the departed to make their transition with greater ease. The wind that moves across these heights carries with it the accumulated prayers of generations, voices that have spoken the ancient words in this place, until the very air seems saturated with their devotion. The sound rises and falls like breathing, creating rhythms that match the heartbeat of the earth itself. In this wind, the distinction between the living and the dead becomes less absolute, for it carries the essence of all who have participated in these rituals, whether as practitioners or as those who received them. As the final approach begins, the arrangement of watchers around the sacred space reveals itself in its full complexity. Each figure occupies a position that has been determined not by chance, but by careful calculation of lines of sight, prevailing winds, and the requirements of ritual purity. The Mobad with his records, the bone washer with her tools, the grieving daughter with her constrained love, the water-bringer with his blessed vessel, all form points in a constellation of human devotion that surrounds the central mystery of death and transformation. The platform itself stands ready to receive its burden. The stone surfaces clean and prepared, according to specifications that balance the requirements of the ritual with the necessities of the natural cycle that will soon commence. The channels carved into its surface will direct any contaminated flow away from the surrounding area, while the raised central area provides the proper exposure to sun and wind that the sacred birds require for their work. Every detail reflects the accumulated wisdom of those who designed these structures to serve their function across centuries of faithful use. The morning light grows stronger, illuminating the scene with clarity that reveals each element in its proper relationship to the whole. The path reaches its conclusion at the platform's edge, the journey from the world below complete. The burden that has traveled this ancient way prepares for its transformation, while the watchers maintain their appointed vigils. The birds circle with increasing frequency, their patience nearing its reward. The wind shifts and strengthens, carrying with it the promise of work that will restore balance to the sacred order. The platform waits in perfect stillness, ready to fulfill its eternal purpose. The cycle prepares to complete another revolution, as it has since the first fire was lit and the first prayer was spoken in these consecrated heights. The platform stands in perfect circular unity beneath the climbing sun, its stone surface marked with channels that have been carved with such precision that they seem to flow like rivers frozen in time. Each groove follows patterns established by the sacred geometry that governs all things in the realm of Ahura Mazda, directing the inevitable flow away from areas that must remain pure while ensuring that no contamination can reach the sacred elements that surround this place of transformation. The linen that wraps the still form begins to yield beneath fingers that have performed this unveiling countless times before, each fold opening with a deliberate care that honors both the departed and the cosmic order that governs the passage between worlds. The fabric falls away like petals from a flower that has completed its blooming, revealing the human clay that must return to its component elements through processes that maintain the sanctity of fire, earth, and water. Beneath the wrappings, the body lies in the position prescribed by the Vendod, arranged so that no sacred element can be defiled by contact with the Nesu that death has brought into being. The limbs rest in attitudes that speak of peace rather than struggle, positioned according to formulas that facilitate the work of the sacred birds, while maintaining the dignity proper to one who has served the cause of truth during the span of mortal life. The copper blade that cuts the final bindings moves with surgical precision, each cut releasing another portion of the form from the constraints that held it during its journey to this place. The sacred thread falls away like serpents shedding skin, each strand carrying with it prayers that have been woven into its fiber during the process of consecration. These threads will be gathered and burned in the sacred fire that burns in the temple below, their smoke carrying the essence of the prayers upward to join the eternal worship that surrounds the throne of the wise Lord. Nothing that has touched the dead can be allowed to remain in contact with the world of the living, but through fire. all things can be purified and returned to their proper place in the cosmic order. The birds that have been circling with patient attention begin to descend in stages, their movements following patterns that reflect their understanding of the ritual that unfolds below. The vultures, largest and most powerful of the sacred scavengers, maintain their position at the highest altitudes, waiting for their moment to begin the work that only they can perform. Below them, the kites and smaller birds of prey arrange themselves in their appointed ranks, each species understanding its role in the hierarchy that governs this most sacred of transformations. The first to approach the platform are the scouts, single birds that separate themselves from the circling multitude to examine what has been prepared for their service. Their sharp eyes assess the arrangement, confirming that all requirements have been met, that the positioning follows the ancient prescriptions, that nothing interferes with the natural processes that will soon commence. Their calls ring out across the heights, signals that communicate the readiness of the offering to those who wait in the aerial assembly above. From his position beside the platform, he watches this preliminary assessment with the attention that years of practice have taught him to maintain. His breathing, filtered through the cotton soaked in ash and rose, creates a rhythm that matches the measured wing beats of the descending birds, a harmony between human devotion and natural purpose that sanctifies the work about to begin. The rose oil carries with it memories of gardens that might exist in the paradise promised to the faithful, while the ash speaks of the purifying fire that awaits all things at the end of their earthly journey. The bone washer, visible through gaps in the stone outcropping that conceals her station, begins the preparation of her tools for the work that will come later when the birds have completed their portion of the sacred cycle. Her copper instruments gleam in the strengthening sunlight, each piece blessed according to formulas that ensure their fitness for contact with what will remain when flesh has been separated from bones. The ossuary jars that wait beside her have been shaped from clay that has never known fire, formed through processes that maintain their ritual purity while providing vessels worthy of their sacred contents. The wind that moves across the platform carries with it scents that speak of the eternal cycle that governs all existence. The sage and wild thyme that grow in crevices between the stones release their fragrances like incense offered to the sky, while the clean scent of sun-warmed rock provides a foundation that speaks of the unchanging truth that underlies all transformation. These natural perfumes mingle with the rose and ash that filter each carefully drawn breath, creating an atmosphere that exists at the boundary between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. The grieving daughter, concealed behind her wall of carefully fitted stones, maintains her vigil with a stillness that speaks of love transformed by understanding into perfect attention. Her presence, though hidden from direct sight, can be felt as a gentle pressure that adds weight to the solemnity of the ritual, a reminder that each life that passes through this transformation has touched other lives with bonds that survive the dissolution of the flesh. Her grief, constrained by the requirements of sacred law, becomes itself a form of worship, an offering of human emotion refined by proper observance of divine command. The sun climbs higher, bringing with it the warmth that the sacred birds require for their work to proceed according to the natural rhythms that govern their appetites. The light strikes the platform with increasing intensity, illuminating every detail of the scene with clarity that seems to make the boundary between the physical and spiritual realms more permeable. In this enhanced illumination, the work takes on a quality that transcends ordinary understanding, becoming a visible manifestation of the invisible processes that maintain the balance between order and chaos in the cosmic scheme. As the preliminary examination concludes, the first of the working birds settles upon the platform with movements that demonstrate the careful attention that governs their approach to this sacred duty. Their talons grip the stone surface with precision that speaks of countless repetitions of this ritual, each landing calculated to position them optimally for the work they are about to perform. Their eyes, bright with intelligence that serves purposes beyond mere hunger, survey the offering that has been prepared for their service with a gravity appropriate to their role in the cosmic order. The transformation that follows proceeds according to rhythms that have been established since the first fire was lit and the first prayer was spoken in honor of the wise Lord, who created all things in wisdom and truth. Each movement of the sacred birds follows patterns that reflect their understanding of the work they perform, their actions guided by instincts that have been refined through countless generations of service to the divine will. What might appear to uninformed eyes as mere feeding reveals itself to proper understanding as ritual of the highest order, a ceremony in which appetite and devotion merge into perfect service of the cosmic balance. The sounds that accompany this transformation create a music that speaks, in languages older than human speech, voices that communicate meanings which transcend the limitations of words and enter directly into the understanding that dwells in the deepest chambers of the heart. The calls of the birds rise and fall like chanting, their voices weaving together into harmonies that speak of work performed in perfect coordination with the will of heaven. The wind adds its voice to this chorus, carrying the accumulated prayers of generations across the stone surfaces, until the very air seems to vibrate with devotion. From the temple below, the sound of the sacred fire can be heard as a distant murmur, the eternal flame adding its voice to the symphony of worship that surrounds the platform. The smoke that rises from that fire creates patterns in the sky that seem to acknowledge the work being performed on the heights, visible confirmation that the ritual proceeds according to divine approval. The connection between the fire that burns in the temple and the transformation that occurs on the platform demonstrates the unity that underlies all proper worship of the Creator. The water-bringer, having completed his function by providing the means of purification without allowing contamination of the sacred element, maintains his position at the prescribed distance, while the ritual unfolds according to its ancient pattern. The blessed water remains available for use when the time comes for cleansing, its purity protected by careful adherence to the laws that govern the interaction between the pure and the impure. His stillness demonstrates the patience that proper service requires, the willingness to wait through whatever time is necessary for each phase of the ritual to reach its natural completion. The Mobad continues his recording of the essential details that must be preserved for the cosmic accounting that maintains order across generations. His careful script captures not only the name and date, but also the quality of the wind, the arrangement of the birds, the condition of the sky, all details that contribute to the complete record of each soul's passage from the world of flesh to the realm of spirit. His work ensures that no transformation goes unwitnessed, that each life receives the recognition due to one who has participated in the great experiment of existence. As the work progresses, the quality of light on the platform seems to intensify, as though the sun itself acknowledges the sacred nature of what transpires beneath its rays. The shadows cast by the circling birds create patterns that shift and flow like calligraphy written in darkness upon the stone surface. Temporary inscriptions that speak of the impermanence that characterizes all earthly existence. Yet in their constant change, these shadows also demonstrate the eternal principles that govern the cosmic dance, the unchanging truths that manifest through countless variations of form and circumstance. The transformation continues with the methodical thoroughness that characterizes all proper ritual, each phase flowing into the next according to timings that have been established through centuries of careful observation and faithful practice. The birds work with an efficiency that speaks of perfect adaptation to their role in the cosmic order, their movements coordinated through communication that transcends the limitations of ordinary animal behavior. Their service demonstrates the harmony that exists between all levels of creation, when each fulfills its appointed function with complete devotion to the divine will. The wind shifts as the sun reaches its zenith, bringing with it currents that speak of the completion of one phase and the approach of the next stage in the eternal cycle. The birds begin to withdraw in the same orderly fashion that marked their arrival, their movements following patterns that leave the platform prepared for the next phase of the transformation. Their calls echo off the stone walls of the valley as they climb back toward by appointed positions in the aerial hierarchy. Voices that carry gratitude for the service they have been permitted to perform, and anticipation of the future occasions when their work will again be required. The platform, cleansed by the sacred service of the birds, lies ready for the final phases of the ritual that will restore balance to the cosmic order. The channels carved into its surface have performed their function, directing all contamination away from areas that must remain pure, while ensuring that nothing inappropriate has come into contact with the sacred elements. That wind moves freely across the stone surface, carrying away the last traces of the transformation and preparing the space for whatever will follow in the continuing cycle of death and renewal. The bone jar waits in perfect stillness, ready to receive what will remain when the sacred work has reached its completion. The sun stands directly overhead, its light falling without shadow upon the platform where transformation has occurred according to the ancient pattern. The birds circle at their appointed heights, their patience exemplifying the eternal vigilance that maintains order in the cosmic scheme. The wind carries prayers toward heaven, voices that speak of work performed in perfect harmony with divine will. The watchers maintain their vigils, each fulfilling their appointed role in the ceremony that honors both the departed and the eternal principles that govern all existence. The sun stands now at its highest point above the sacred platform, its rays falling like benediction upon stone surfaces that have been cleansed by the ancient process that maintains the balance between the pure and the impure elements of creation. The light itself seems transformed by what it illuminates, taking on qualities that speak of the presence of the sacred in every photon that touches the consecrated space where transformation has occurred according to the will of Ahura Mazda. What remains upon the platform bears witness to the wisdom that established these rituals in the earliest days of the faith, when the first priests received the revelations that would guide the handling of the dead through all the generations that would follow. The bones lie arranged in patterns that reflect the original form, while demonstrating the liberation that death brings from the constraints of flesh. Each piece positioned according to principles that honor both the departed soul and the cosmic order that governs all existence. The bone washer begins her approach along paths that have been established by countless repetitions of this final phase of the ritual. Her movements, following patterns that ensure no contamination, can reach areas that must remain pure, while allowing her to perform the work that only she can accomplish. Her tools, blessed according to the ancient formulas, gleam with the reflected light of the sun overhead. Copper, implements that will gather what remains without compromising the sanctity of the process through which bone is separated from the profane world and prepared for its eternal rest. From behind her wall of fitted stones, the grieving daughter witnesses this final phase of the transformation that will take her beloved from the visible world into the realm of memory and spirit. Her stillness has deepened during the hours of waiting, becoming a form of prayer that requires no words, no gestures, no external manifestation beyond the perfect attention she brings to this moment of completion. Her love, refined by proper observance of sacred law, becomes itself an offering that honors both the departed and the divine wisdom, that establishes the boundaries between the living and the dead. Bundle of myrtle that rests beside her consists of branches that have been gathered according to the prescriptions that govern the offering, of gifts that will not compromise the purity required for the proper performance of the ritual. The aromatic leaves release their fragrance into the dry air of the highlands, creating an atmosphere that speaks of gardens that might exist in the paradise promised to those who have served the cause of truth during their earthly journey. This offering represents the final gesture of connection that the living can make to those who have passed beyond the boundary that separates the two realms of existence. The approach of the bone washer follows the spiral path that has been carved into the stone surrounding the platform, each step taking her closer to the sacred center, while maintaining the ritual distance that prevents contamination from spreading to areas that must remain pure. Her movements have the quality of ritual dance, each gesture flowing into the next with grace that reflects years of practice in the performance of this most delicate phase of the transformation process. The rhythm of her progress matches the breathing that filters through cotton soaked in ash and rose, creating a harmony that speaks of human effort coordinated with divine purpose. The copper vessels that she carries have been shaped by craftsmen who understand the relationship between form and function in the service of sacred purpose, each curve and angle calculated to facilitate the gathering of bones, while maintaining the ritual purity that allows them to serve as permanent repositories for what remains when flesh has been separated from the eternal elements of the soul. The engravings that decorate their surfaces tell stories of the journey that souls must make from the world of physical existence to the realm of pure spirit, visual prayers that will accompany their contents through the long ages of their rest. The wind that moves across the platform has changed in character since the completion of the transformation, carrying with it scents that speak of purification accomplished and balance restored to the cosmic order. The sage and wild thyme that grow in crevices between the stones release their fragrances with renewed intensity, as though acknowledging the successful completion of another cycle in the eternal dance of death and renewal. The clean scent of sun-warmed rock provides a foundation that speaks of the unchanging truth that underlies all transformation, while the rose and ash that filter each breath create an atmosphere of sacred preparation for the final phase of the ritual. As the bone washer begins her work, each movement follows patterns that have been established through centuries of careful observation and faithful practice. Her hands guided by knowledge that has been passed from teacher to student through countless generations of those who have served this sacred function. The copper tools move with precision that perfect familiarity with their task, gathering what remains according to principles that ensure proper treatment of each bone, while maintaining the ritual purity required for their permanent preservation in the vessels that await their final placement. The arrangement of bones within each vessel follows patterns that reflect the original unity of the form, while acknowledging the transformation that death has brought to the relationship between soul and matter. Each piece finds its appointed place according to principles that balance the practical requirements of storage with the spiritual necessities of honoring the departed through proper treatment of what remains of their earthly manifestation. The process becomes a form of sculpture in which the materials themselves determine the final composition, creating arrangements that speak of order emerging from the apparent chaos of dissolution. The Mobad continues his recording of the details that must be preserved for future generations, his careful script capturing not only the essential facts, but also the subtle variations that make each performance of the ritual unique while maintaining its essential character. The quality of the light, the direction of the wind, the behavior of the sacred birds, the condition of the bones, all these details contribute to the complete record that ensures proper accounting in the cosmic ledger that maintains balance across all the generations of the faithful. The sacred birds that performed the earlier phase of the transformation maintain their positions in the aerial hierarchy above the platforms, their presence serving as witness to the completion of their work, while demonstrating their readiness to serve again when the cycle requires their participation. Their calls create a chorus that rises and falls with the rhythm, bores of their flight voices that speak of satisfaction at service properly performed and patience, for whatever role they may be called to play in future iterations of the eternal cycle. From the platform itself, the view encompasses the entire valley where the temples of fire maintain their eternal vigils, each flame serving as a point of light in the constellation of worship that honors the Creator of all things. The smoke that rises from these sacred fires creates patterns in the sky that seem to acknowledge the work being performed on the heights visible. Confirmation that the transformation proceeds according to divine approval and contributes to the maintenance of cosmic order through proper observance of the laws that govern the relationship between the pure and the impure. The young water-bringer, having fulfilled his function by providing the means of purification without allowing contamination of the sacred element, begins his withdrawal along the paths that will take him back to the world below, where the ordinary business of life continues, according to patterns that depend upon the proper performance of rituals such as this one. His departure follows routes established by generations of those who have served this function, each step retracing paths that have been sanctified by the feet of the faithful, who understand their role in maintaining the balance that keeps the sacred elements safe from corruption. The blessed water that he provided remains available for the final purifications that will complete the ritual, its surface reflecting the afternoon sky like a fragment of heaven brought down to earth for the service of divine purpose. The vessel that contains it has been positioned according to principles that ensure its contents remain pure, while providing access for the cleansing that must occur before the platform can be considered ready for future use. The water itself seems to vibrate with potential energy, ready to fulfill its role in the restoration of balance that marks the conclusion of each complete cycle, as the gathering of bones continues according to its methodical patterns. The quality of attention that surrounds the platform intensifies rather than diminishes, as though the completion of each phase of the ritual increases rather than reduces the sacred presence that governs the entire process. The watchers maintain their vigils with steadfast devotion, each fulfilling their appointed role in the constellation of human attention that surrounds the central mystery of death and transformation. Their collective presence creates an atmosphere that supports the delicate work of the final phase, while honoring the significance of what is being accomplished. The bundle of myrtle that waits beside the grieving daughter represents more than simple offering. It embodies the connection between the world of the living and the realm that her beloved has entered, a bridge of fragrance and memory that allows love to express itself, despite the barriers that sacred law maintains between the pure and the impure. The aromatic oils that the leaves release speak of gardens that transcend the boundaries of earthly existence, spaces where the separation between the living and the dead becomes less absolute, and the bonds of affection can continue to provide comfort and connection. The copper vessels gradually fill according to the precise arrangements that honor both the departed and the cosmic order that governs all. microscopic existence, each bone finding its place in compositions that reflect the underlying harmony that connects all things in the realm of Ahura Mazda. The engravings on the surfaces of these containers tell stories that will accompany their contents through the long ages of their rest. Visual prayers that speak of journeys completed and destinations achieved. Through proper observance of the laws that maintain balance in the cosmic scheme. The sun begins its descent from the zenith, bringing with it changes in the quality of light that illuminate the platform and its surroundings with hues that speak of transformation accomplished and balance restored. The shadows cast by the circling birds create patterns that shift and flow across the stone surfaces like calligraphy written in darkness, temporary inscriptions that speak of the impermanence that characterizes all earthly forms, while demonstrating the eternal principles that govern their constant transformation according to divine will. The wind that moves across the heights carries with it the accumulated prayers of generations, voices that have spoken the ancient words in this place, until the very air seems saturated with devotion offered in perfect harmony with the requirements of sacred law. The sound rises and falls like breathing, creating rhythms that match the heartbeat of the earth itself, while carrying messages from the realm of the living to the domain of the dead and back again in endless circulation of communication that transcends the limitations of ordinary speech. Be final bones, find their places in the vessels that will serve as their eternal homes, each piece positioned according to principles that ensure proper treatment while maintaining the ritual purity required for their preservation in sacred space. The arrangement within each container reflects the wisdom of those who established these practices in the earliest days of the faith, when the first revelations provided guidance for the handling of the dead that would serve the faithful through all the generations that would follow. The bone washer completes her gathering with movements that maintain the ritual precision that has characterized every phase of her work. Her hands guided by knowledge that connects her to all those who have served this function since the first platform was built in these highlands. The copper tools that aided her work gleam with the light of the descending sun, their surfaces reflecting the completion of another successful transformation that contributes to the maintenance of cosmic balance through proper observance of divine command. As the vessels receive their final contents and the lids are fitted according to the specifications that ensure their perfect seal, the platform begins to assume the quality of stillness that marks the completion of one cycle and the readiness for whatever the future may bring. The channels carved into its surface have performed their function, directing all contamination away from areas that must remain pure while ensuring that the sacred elements have been protected throughout the entire process of transformation. The bundle of myrtle moves from its position beside the grieving daughter to its place near the completed vessels, carried by hands that observe the requirements of ritual purity while expressing the love that survives the dissolution of the flesh and continues to bind souls together across the boundaries that separate different modes of existence. The fragrance of the aromatic leaves mingles with the scents of sage and wild thyme, that have provided the natural incense for this ceremony, creating an atmosphere that speaks of completion rather than ending, of transformation rather than loss. The vessels themselves seem to glow with reflected light from the descending sun, their copper surfaces transformed into mirrors that capture and concentrate the radiance that speaks of divine approval for work performed according to the ancient prescriptions. The engravings on their sides tell stories that will continue long after those who witness this day have joined the ranks of the departed, visual prayers that ensure proper remembrance of souls who have completed their earthly journey and earned their place in the realm of eternal light. The Mobad completes his recording of the day's events, his careful script capturing the essential details that will preserve this moment in the cosmic, recounting that maintains order across generations. His work ensures that the transformation just witnessed becomes part of the permanent record that connects each individual death to the larger pattern of existence that demonstrates the depth wisdom of the Creator in establishing the laws that govern all things. The ink that flows from his reed carries with it the weight of tradition and the promise of continuity that spans the generations of the faithful. The sacred birds begin their gradual withdrawal from the aerial positions they have maintained throughout the ritual, their departure following patterns that demonstrate their understanding of cycles completed and duties fulfilled according to divine command. Their voices create a final chorus that rises toward heaven like incense, offered in gratitude for the opportunity to serve the cosmic order through the performance of their appointed function. Their flight patterns inscribe temporary prayers in the sky above the platform, messages that speak of work accomplished and balance maintained through proper coordination of human devotion with natural purpose. The platform lies ready for its return to the state of pure potential that characterizes sacred space between the performances of ritual, its surfaces cleansed by the processes that have just concluded and prepared for whatever future service the eternal cycle may require. The channels carved into the stone have fulfilled their function. The raised areas have provided proper exposure for the sacred transformation, and the entire structure demonstrates the wisdom of those who designed it to serve its purpose across centuries of faithful use. The wind shifts as afternoon progresses toward evening, bringing with it currents that speak of completion and the approach of the restorative darkness that allows the earth to prepare for the renewal that each dawn brings to the world. The sense carried on these currents tell of work accomplished according to divine plan, of balance restored through proper observance of sacred law, of love expressed through careful attention to the requirements that maintain order in the cosmic scheme. The bone jars rest in perfect stillness, their contents properly arranged for the eternal rest that follows the completion of the earthly journey. The wind moves freely across the platform, carrying away the last traces of the day's transformation and preparing the space for whatever will follow in the continuing cycle of death and renewal. The sun descends toward the horizon, its light painting the stone surfaces with hues that speak of benediction offered and received. The watchers prepare for their own withdrawal. their vigils maintained until the proper conclusion of the ritual releases them to return to their appointed places in the world below. The circle beneath the sun prepares to complete another revolution in the eternal dance that maintains all things in their proper relationship to the source of all existence.